Today, I will tell you about two terrifying and tragic events. You can decide which tragic event affects you more while watching. Viewer discretion is advised. In the final days of October, a fierce wind swept through the high desert of eastern Oregon, rattling the sagebrush and whispering a cold warning. For 5 friends from Portland, it was the perfect chance for one last caving trip before winter set in. Nestled beneath the volcanic terrain of Harney County, Malheur Cave was known for its wild beauty and eerie silence. Its untouched passages drew amateur cavers, and on October 28, 2024, it became a terrifying ordeal for one group. The 5 friends had no idea this journey would change their lives forever. The group consisted of 5 individuals from varied backgrounds. Ryan Carter, a 34-year-old mechanic, was weary and known for his knack for fixing anything. Emily Harper, a 29-year-old graphic designer, was curious and bold. Jake Sullivan, a 41-year-old high school teacher, was an experienced leader who had been caving for years. Sarah Nguyen, a 27-year-old nurse, was an adrenaline junkie who thrived on tough adventures. Matt Reynolds, a 32-year-old corporate manager, had recently taken up caving to escape his desk-bound life. They'd met through an outdoor club in Portland, forging strong bonds over countless nature escapades. Malheur Cave, with its narrow passages and hidden depths, was their most ambitious challenge yet. At first glance, the cave's entrance was a jagged 36-foot-wide maw carved into basalt rock by ancient lava flows. The floor sloped downward at a gentle 25-degree angle, stretching into darkness. Equipped with headlamps, ropes, and a shared thrill, the group moved forward, their boots crunching against the volcanic ground. As they descended, the air grew colder and heavier, the echoes of dripping water chillingly resonant. Malheur's main passage stretched roughly a mile, but the group was drawn to the allure of unmapped side tunnels. Local rumors hinted that these tunnels promised both danger and undiscovered wonders. About 500 feet in, Jake spotted a fissure in the eastern wall. A vertical slit, just 12 inches wide, descended into shadows. Unmarked on official maps, Jake's years of experience led him to suspect it might connect to a larger chamber. The group decided to explore, driven by their curiosity. Ryan, with his slim frame, volunteered to go first. He tied a rope around his waist, Jake secured it firmly, and Ryan began his cautious descent. The fissure was unforgiving from the start. He turned sideways, exhaling to compress his chest, inching downward. The damp basalt walls scraped against his jacket, the cold seeping through its layers. After a 15-foot drop, Ryan reached a small ledge, just enough space to stand. He signaled up with the rope, and Emily followed. Her slender build navigated the tight space carefully. Jake, Sarah, and Matt descended one by one. They regrouped on the narrow platform, their breaths fogging in the dim light. Below them, a 20-foot drop led to a wider tunnel, its walls glistening with condensation. Jake rigged a second rope, and the group rappelled down. Their boots thudded dully against the uneven floor. The new passage twisted like a serpent, its ceiling dipping low in spots, forcing them to crouch. The air was thick, almost suffocating, with a faint sulfur scent from the volcanic rock stinging their noses. Their headlamps illuminated dangling stalactites. The group paused, awestruck by the raw beauty of this untouched space, taking in their surroundings. But the cave had more to offer and much to take. Midway through the tunnel, Sarah noticed a narrow side passage on the right. Even tighter than the first, at just 10 inches wide, it sloped steeply downward. Jake's instincts hesitated for a moment, but the group's collective excitement overruled him. Ryan went first again, plunging headfirst into the constriction. The walls grazed his shoulders, his arms pinned as he wriggled forward. After 30 feet, he reached a small pocket just big enough to sit. He called back through the narrow tunnel, urging the others to follow. Emily went next, her movements slow and deliberate. The squeeze was brutal, her hips caught briefly, forcing her to twist awkwardly to break free. She reached Ryan, her face flushed from the effort. Sarah followed, her athletic frame barely clearing the gap. Jake and Matt stayed behind, securing the rope and watching the tunnel swallow their friends. The plan was simple: explore the pocket, then return. But Mallor Cave had other intentions. The pocket was a dead end, its walls smooth and unyielding. Disappointed but determined, Ryan began the climb back. Ascending proved far harder than descending. The steep angle worked against him, gravity tugging at his legs as he pushed with his elbows. His wet clothes clung to the rock, slowing his progress. Halfway up, his right leg slipped into a hidden crevice he hadn't noticed on the way down. The rock clamped around his ankle like a vice. He struggled to free himself, his hands scraping the walls, but the crevice held tight. The more he fought, the deeper his legs sank, the sharp edges tearing his skin and pants. Panic set in, the cold sapping his strength. Ryan's pale face and wide, fearful eyes glistened with sweat despite the chill. Back in the main passage, Jake and Matt felt the rope go slack. Emily's faint voice reached them. Ryan was stuck. Jake squeezed through the narrow tunnel to the pocket, his back scraped raw by the rocks. Ryan's leg was trapped up to his knee, blood trickling out. His breathing was shallow, his body trembling from cold and shock. Emily and Sarah clawed at the crevice with their hands, but the basalt wouldn't budge. Jake realized they needed help fast. He and Matt raced to the surface, their legs burning from the climb. Cell service was weak, but they reached the Harney County Sheriff's Office, who patched them through to the Oregon Cave Rescue Team. The call went out at 3:47 p.m. Ryan had been trapped for 2 hours. The rescue team arrived at 5:30 p.m., 40 miles from Burns, equipped with drills, pulleys, and thermal blankets. Ryan had been stuck for 5 hours. The team descended to the pocket, their gear barely fitting through the tight passages. Ryan's pulse was faint, his lips blue. Hypothermia had set in, his wet clothes stealing his warmth. The rescue was grueling, the narrow crevice limited movement. Just as the team set up a pulley system, a deep rumble echoed through the passage. An unseen crack in the tunnel's ceiling, weakened by years of strain, gave way, and massive rocks crashed down onto Ryan. It was over in an instant. Ryan didn't even have time to cry out. His death was swift. The rescue team scrambled back to safety, but the real tragedy lay deeper. Emily and Sarah were trapped in the small chamber by the collapse. Fear stripped everything from them, one by one. Mallor Cave had torn them apart in a single moment. Days passed as Jake and Matt stayed by the rescue efforts, desperate to reach their friends. But the rocks were merciless, immovable. On the third day, the operation ended. Emily and Sarah, in a way they never could have imagined, were entombed forever in their confined space, embracing death. Mallor Cave had become a grave for 3 friends. Jake and Matt returned to their lives, shattered by the horrific loss, neither ever finding the happiness they once knew. If the tragedy of the first story affected you, you're ready for the second one. In the second story, you'll witness the silent depths tearing 3 friends apart from each other. In late November 1998, the rural hills of Warren County in central Tennessee stretched silently under the gray skies of early winter. The air hung heavy with the sharp scent of decaying leaves and damp soil. For three friends from Nashville, this was a final chance to escape the bustle of city life and descend into the depths of the Cumberland caves. Known as one of America's longest limestone cave systems, Cumberland stretched over 25 miles of passages, boasting a reputation both mesmerizing and menacing. On November 23, 1998, the journey of these three adventurers into this mysterious underground world turned into a claustrophobic nightmare, chaining them to the rocks forever. The group was made up of tight-knit friends who answered nature's call. Jack, 35, was a carpenter. His strong arms and lean frame gave him confidence navigating tight spaces. Sally, 28, was a yoga instructor. Her flexibility and calm demeanor made her stand out in tough adventures. The third member, Noah, 32, was a software engineer tired of desk life, having passionately taken up caving over the past 2 years. They'd met at a Nashville outdoor sports event, and their shared weekends had led them to this wild exploration. The Cumberland Caves, with their dark corridors and unknown corners, thrilled them. The cave's entrance yawned like a majestic fissure in the forest, a 50-foot wide limestone mouth with moss-covered edges and a cold draft spilling outward. The first few hundred feet were wide and almost pleasant. The floor was covered in gravel and dust. Equipped with headlamps, climbing gear, and a few bottles of water, the trio stepped inside, their boots crunching against the silence, adding a layer of mystery to the stillness. The air grew colder as they descended. Moisture seeping from the walls clung to their jackets. The main passage stretched out like a grand hall, but the group sought the unmapped side tunnels whispered about by local cavers as harboring both danger and enigma. At about 300 yards in, Jack spotted a narrow crevice in the north wall. Just 20 inches wide, it slanted sharply downward, its limestone edges jagged and slick. It wasn't on the maps, but Jack's experience suggested it might open into a larger chamber. Sally and Noah nodded eagerly. Turning back didn't even cross their minds. Jack went first, tying a rope around his waist and slipping into the crevice. Squeezing his chest and holding his breath, he slid sideways, the stone scraping his ski. After a 12-foot drop, he reached a small platform, just enough room to stand. He tugged the rope, signaling the others. Sally followed. Her flexible body navigated the tightness with ease. Noah came last. His height and broad shoulders slowed him, but his determination got him through. They gathered on the platform, their breath fogging in the dim light. Below them, a 20-foot drop opened into a wet tunnel. Jack secured a second rope, and they slid down one by one. Their boots hit the slick floor. The tunnel was narrow and winding. The ceiling dipped low in spots, forcing them to crouch. The air was stifling, thick with the smell of mold. Water droplets from the limestone echoed around them. Their headlamps illuminated delicate crystal formations, and for a moment, the group marveled at this raw beauty. But the cave was setting a trap. Deeper in the tunnel, Sally noticed an even narrower passage on the right, just 12 inches wide. This was where the disaster began, a steep chute plunging downward. Jack's instincts hesitated for a moment, but the group's shared excitement overpowered caution. Unaware that this reckless thrill would be their final decision, Jack led the way again, diving headfirst into the chute, arms pinned at his sides as he slid. The walls pressed against his chest. His breath grew shallow. After 40 feet, he reached a tiny pocket coffin-tight, with barely any air. Sally followed. Her flexibility helped, but her hips grazed the rock. Noah came next. His shoulders jammed, his breathing turned too wheezing. The three crowded into the pocket, their headlamps flickering. The pocket was a dead-end smooth walls, no way out. They decided to turn back, but the chute was unforgiving on the climb up. Jack started first. His wet clothes stuck to the rock, every inch a struggle. Halfway up, his right arm slipped into a crack. The stone clamped around his wrist like a vice. He pulled, but the rock dug into his skin. Blood trickled. Panic surged. His chest tightened. His breath faltered. Below, Sally and Noah heard his thrashing, but the chute blocked them from helping. Jack's movement slowed. The cold sapped his strength. His headlamp went dark. Sally tried climbing to reach Jack, but the narrowness locked her hips in place. The walls clung to her body. Her breathing quickened, but the air was thinning. Noah flailed at the chute's base, desperate to save them, but the ceiling couldn't bear the strain of years. A faint crack sounded, then a massive slab of rock fell. It crushed Sally, burying her body in the chute forever. A cloud of dust rose. Noah was blinded, his lungs choked. Above, Jack's wrist still trapped trembled in shock, but the ceiling collapsed on him too. The rock caved in his chest. His breath stopped for good. Noah was left alone at the pocket's bottom. The air was poisoned with dust and the stench of death. There was no escape. Each breath burned his lungs more. Hours passed. Oxygen dwindled. His consciousness faded. The Cumberland cave swallowed all three. Jack crushed in the chute above. Sally pinned in the narrowness. Noah suffocated at the pocket's base. Days later, local authorities found the entrance, but rescue efforts buckled under the weight of the rocks. The cave turned these three explorers into an eternal tomb. Tennessee's quiet hills forgot their story.